Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for the second of two live webinars today, introducing techniques for lists. As you probably, if you're here, you already know that the PDF Association, and in particular, in this case, the PDF Accessibility Liaison Working Group within the PDF Association, is producing a set of new authoritative techniques showing pass cases and fail cases for list, in this case, lists, but actually overall we're going to be going through all the structure elements and providing guidance on every semantic type of tag in PDF. So I'd like the panelists to very briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll get underway with Jacobin's presentation. We want to encourage you to ask questions via the question pod. Do so, before, during, or after the webinar, and we'll be sure to get through your questions, unless you bury us in questions, of course, and then who knows what will happen. But in any event, let me turn it over and get some introductions here. Will, do you want to start off and tell us who you are?
Sure. I'm William Killian. I am an independent consultant and was active in developing the PDF UA2 standard and also the well-tagged standard and the 32005 standard that helps with identifying parent-child relationships among tags.
Thanks, Will. Jacobin?
I will introduce myself with a little bit later.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I have the sheets, so
Yeah, because you got the sheets. Paul.
yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Reyes. I'm the Vice President of Customer Support and Training with PDFix. And also, like William and like many others on the call, also participated in much of that standards writing effort.
Yeah, thank you. Zach?
Hi, I'm Zach Kinsey, Vice President at Target Stream Technologies. I co-chair various working groups here at the PDF Association, chief among them the PDF Accessibility Liaison Working Group that helps produce these techniques, and have been active in the accessibility space. So look forward to your questions.
Great, Zach. Okay, so we're going to turn it over to Jacobin now and give the presentation. Then we'll please take your questions and we'll get to those as well. Jacobin, over to you.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so let me see. There was something in the way of my screen. So a little housekeeping to start with. This is there's a Q&A pod to ask questions, and the panelists will either respond directly or address your questions after the presentation. There will be a short presentation of 10 minutes about the lists, and then there will be a Q&A. You can use the chat to message the host in case you have a problem or a question about the webinar. The webinar will be recorded. You should get an email after the webinar is concluded, so please allow some time for Zoom to process the recording. A little information about the PDF Association and the PDF Accessibility LWG. This is a member-supported, vendor-neutral platform supporting the development of open specifications and standards for PDF technology. There are member organizations and individuals, and they collaborate in 20 plus working groups to drive PDF into the 21st century and beyond. We are all members of the PDF Accessibility Liaison Working Group, and this is one of the PDF Association's 5 working groups dedicated to accessibility-related topics in PDF technology. We're working on techniques for accessible PDF. This is the primary work we are doing, and today we're introducing you to the list techniques. And you can join us, and therefore you can visit pdfa.org to learn more about how to participate. We want to stress that the PDF Association does not have a vendor preference. We do not endorse any tools, and therefore we rotate tools for these webinars. The members of the panel already introduced themselves. Zach Kinsey, Paul Reyes, William Killian, and Jeff Johnson. And I said I would introduce myself with the sheet. Well, my name is Jacobien Riesebos. I'm into digital accessibility since 2002. I work as a freelance consultant, author, international speaker, researcher, and trainer. And I'm experienced in organizational strategy and governance approaches to digital accessibility. And I'm an accessible document specialist and a member of the PDF Accessibility Liaison Working Group. There are components of the techniques we are writing, the techniques for accessible PDF. And there is a fully functional atomic PDF file demonstrating a single aspect of passing PDF UA1 or failing PDF UA1. And what do we mean with atomic? We mean that it only contains the bare minimum content necessary for demonstrating the technique. So there's no other there are no other elements in the PDF file that demonstrates the aspect. There is a test procedure and there is a descriptive text.
Jacobien, you hit a key that muted yourself.
Yes, I'm sorry. Did you miss 10 seconds or more?
Just start at the top of the next slide. Yeah, right
Here.
there.
Okay,
Perfect.
Thank you very much. So why is the markup of lists important? Well, when you mark up a list correctly, it gives you a summary of the list, and it tells you there is a list and how many items there are in the list. And each list item is announced, and a user, or for example, a screen reader or other assistive technology can skip an entire list or can navigate through another item. So when you mark up a list correctly, there's clear navigation in a list. And you still stay in the standard mode of navigation in the screen reader, whereas with tables or forms, you go in table mode or form mode. And with the right markup of lists, you have structured content. So which structure elements are there for lists? Well, there are 4 structure elements. This is the L tag for list, and this is the parent structure element, and it contains the other items. First, it contains the list tag, the list item tag, and that contains the label, the list item label. That can be a bullet, a number, or a term in a definition list, and the label body, and that's the list item body, and that's the body content of the list item. The label tag is not always required. You can have lists without labels. And I will get into this a little bit later, but the L tag can be a child of L or L body in hierarchical or multi-level lists. There are 4 types of lists. We have the unordered list with, for example, bullets. We have the ordered list with numbers. We have the nested and hierarchical lists. And we have the definition and description list. And we will I will get into the definition and description lists and the nested and hierarchical lists a bit later. One important element of lists is that you can have lists that span multiple pages or columns. And when a singular list spans across multiple pages, columns, or is interrupted by other content, it must still be tagged as one single list. So in this screenshot, you can see a list, part of a list, with the numbers 21, 22, 23, and 24. And 21 and 22 are still on one page together, and then a new page starts with 23 and 24. It's a pass when this is all in one list semantically, so it's tagged as one list. That's a pass, and it's a fail when it's divided into 2 lists. And some software does that, or you can correct it, but you can see if it's tagged as one list, it's a pass. If it's tagged as 2 lists for the different pages, it's a fail. So what can L be a child of? Of L or L body? And it can, a nested L cannot be, it cannot be a child of label or list item. There's a difference between multi-level and hierarchical. A multi-level list, then the L is a child of the L body. You can see it in the left screenshot. That's how most people are familiar with nested lists, so a list in a list. And a hierarchical list, then the L is a child of an L. So the list item, the first list item in the second screenshot is on the same level as the new list. And so a screen reader also knows how many lists there are in the list. So far for the short presentation, and it's time to switch to the panel and the questions.
Okay, Jacobin, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Let's get to some questions here, and I want to definitely invite everybody who's attending this webinar to think of your own questions for this panel. There's not too many people who know much more about accessible PDF files than the folks in this panel here. So let's start with the first question. Why do I have to think about the list numbering attribute? Why isn't the content of the label tag enough? But Paul, why don't you take a shot at that?
Sure. Oftentimes the content of the label might be sufficient. It might seem like it would be fine, but low-hanging fruit here, PDF UA requires the list numbering attribute to be set with ordered lists, right? So for decimals, numbered lists, or alphabetical when the labels are letters, right? Or Roman numerals. And then more to the point, for list numbering becomes more important, for example, when those labels are Roman numerals, because when the list numbering is set to either upper or lower Roman for uppercase or lowercase Roman numerals, instead of for the third item in a list, instead of a screen reader, for example, saying I, it would say 3, right? Because it's the Roman numeral 3. So that's
Gotcha.
probably one of the best use cases for list numbering.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's see, checking here for a question. Somebody asks, they want to add a new technique, or they think they want to suggest a new technique. Zach, what should they do?
Yeah, this is a great question. And the best way would be to go to the technique. First, go to pdfa.org where you find the techniques. You'll be able to follow that to a link to our public GitHub repository, whereupon you'll be able to open a new issue, whether that's suggesting a technique, a correction to a technique, anything that you want to interact with this group, ideas that you have, whether it relates to list techniques or not. But the public repository on GitHub, and you'll be able to find a link to that in the presentation that's sent out with this webinar as well, is really your best vehicle. Alternatively, you could join the PDF Association and come to our PDF Accessibility Liaison Working Group and join us in the creation of that. Another great way to get your input into these techniques.
I will share the last sheet where there's also a link to the GitHub page. I thought that would come in handy later, but I will show it now. You can provide feedback, and there's a link, the GitHub link, github.com PDF Association Techniques for Accessible PDF, where you can, like Zach said, report the errors, propose improvements, or suggest additional techniques, or like Duff said, join the PDF Association, the PDF Accessibility, LWG, and other working groups.
Okay, so next question here. I'm seeing occasions during remediation where I have a list that also has a paragraph just below the L body content. For design, should that paragraph be some end note inside of interrupting the content or instead of interrupting the content in the list. Okay, so I guess there's a list with a pair. Will, why don't you take that question?
Sure. And the answer is that it's going to require your judgment as the
Yeah.
remediator, who a remediator is essentially an additional author of a document. So just like the original authors would have to use some judgment, you as the remediator have to use your judgment. And it's going to kind of depend if this additional paragraph is really kind of related to just the paragraph of that list item. What you probably should do is just have two paragraphs in one list in one L body. Now, if it's something that's kind of like an asterisk and it's not really related to the list of items, then sure, an end note would be perfect. And then you would make that note appear in the uh, tag tree somewhere later rather than immediately after that L body. You certainly couldn't put it after the L body, but it also probably might not be appropriate inside the L body. Now, if it's also an aside, that would be another situation where you'd put it in the tag tree outside the list, either before the list or after the list. Um, one one other aspect of notes, however, is that they can have a semantic where you have the note immediately following uh, the original body content. So it doesn't necessarily mean just because it's essentially a note semantically that it has to be moved outside of the list. And then also it could be that it's that the list has ended, and then the next thing after the list is a paragraph, in which case you don't need any special semantics for that. You just would go ahead and have your list, the list items and L bodies, and then after the list, so outside of the L body, outside of the list item, outside of the list itself, you would have that paragraph afterwards. So it really is going to be your judgment as to which of those many situations you think is best captures the semantics of the text.
So that's interesting because it kind of reveals or it makes it very clear that that understanding of the content is absolutely not it's not trivial to remediation at all. It's if you if you're not understanding how that note relates to that list, the proximate list item, the list as a whole, then you're not necessarily in great shape to be able to remediate that document. Well, that's interesting. There's a similar question here. Heading lists can sometimes get broken up in interesting ways. And one way is with a heading. So how should that, how would that, how does that work? I mean, how are you supposed to engage that as a remediator? Let's see. Is that Zach? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So again, as William highlighted very appropriately, as the remediator, you are a second author. So interpreting whether the heading is starting a second list or is actually being used, a heading is kind of also a list item label. Is another very common one. So it is very possible to still mark that as a heading, keep your heading level as necessary, and then put that as a child of the list item label. You'll still retain the heading navigation that is desired if that is intended to be a heading. So it really comes down to, again, what is the semantic intent of this? Was it intended to be a second list that has that heading as kind of a list title, or are headings being used to aid in navigation throughout the list and it encompasses being a part of the list as well?
I'd actually like to jump in here
Mhm.
and mention one other thing because I hear this a lot from people who are wrestling with remediation, and very much along the lines of what William was saying about having to make judgment calls and understand what's going on in the document. And what I've run into often is people will look at the document that has numbered headings and then
Mhm.
interpret almost the entire document as a list and start tagging the whole document that way. So
Oh, wow.
you really want to be careful
Mhm.
and make sure that the list that you're tagging really is a list and not just, you're not putting everything into a list because the headings are numbered. So
Right.
another thing to perhaps keep in mind.
Yeah. Jacobin, so what about PDF UA2? I understand that was published quite, not that long ago. So it's early days, I guess. But when will the PDF Association be publishing techniques for PDF UA2?
Well, we're already working. There's a special group working on PDF UA techniques, but it's still in the very beginning. So I don't know if there's already a publication date, but we're already working on them.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Good to know.
Yeah.
Uh, and so another question, I think you mentioned, Jacobin, in your presentation that the techniques are atomic. Who can shed some more light? It's a funny word, I think, for a lot of people. Who can shed some light on that? What is it? Why are you using that word?
Well, it's not a real life PDF like you have a brochure online or a complete PDF like you see in the wilds. It's just very, very, very broken down to the essentials. So you don't get confused by what am I looking at, and then there's all other stuff going on. So you are concentrated on just the fill or the pass, and that's what we mean with atomic. It's just the bare minimum to understand the concept or the failure.
Yeah, and to tag team on this, we're talking about lists. And if and when you go download these PDFs, what you will see is there is only a list inside of the documents, right? We do denote also if it's a fail case or not. So there is potentially some minor other text in there to let you know if this is a pass or a fail case. But otherwise, whatever technique you're in, whatever the specific topic that technique is trying to show or teach is the only thing that's going to be in the document. So it doesn't otherwise make sense as a real world document. It's just going to be a piece that we are honing in on for showing how to either properly or an improper method for tagging that specific structure.
Okay. So the next question here is the definition description list without bullets well known, e.g., a list of members, a list of abbreviations. And I guess this is the point. Many designers of PDF use paragraphs in such a context. So that's interesting. The software, I guess, isn't sitting there to help you do a definition list, really, in many cases. So yeah, what would be some strategies for dealing with that?
Yeah, so I'll tag in on this one. And first and foremost, with the list numbering attribute and defining that this is a definition list, right? And so that your list item label is the term that is going to be defined by the list item body. And with the proper attributes set in the list, many screen readers or downstream assistive technology will then be able to pick up on that association. As for is it well known? Hard to say, right? I think certain implementations are succeeding better than others as far as automatic identification of it. It's also hard to determine, programmatically without human intervention on really, is this just kind of a formatting methodology from the original author, or do we have a description list in this case? So the remediation ability exists, and I would very much suggest that you do tag it in the way described, with the item in the list item label and the definition in the list item body. With the proper list numbering attribute, that is the most compliant and the best way to do it. Now, we can't speak to each implementation, whether it's downstream assistive technology or not, but the ability in PDF in remediation exists, and so continue to do it, and we'll hopefully start to see better and more implementation on the downstream side consuming those lists.
Yeah, but there's also another method when you use a heading and then a list without labels. That could also be a solution for a list with just members, for example. Yeah.
Okay, so are there any tag? So earlier I think Jacobin shared a slide which had list and list item and label and L body in it. Are there any other tags that can never appear in a list? Paul, you want to take a shot of that?
Sure, Duff. Currently, no, there aren't. And so the reason why I'm saying currently is because, for example, what about a caption maybe that's going with a list, right? But currently, the list structure is the list, then the list items, and the labels and the L bodies inside the list items. Uh, for the PDF 1.7 and PDF UA1 context and tagging rules and so on. In PDF 2.0, PDF UA2, this changes. So if there is, for example, a caption associated with a list, then that caption tag would go inside the list tag. Probably, perhaps it might be a judgment call, but probably as the first child right inside the list tag before you get into the list items, probably is where the caption would appear on the page. But this way too, for assistive technology users, they would get the caption before they get into the meat of the list, as opposed to listening to the entire list and then hearing a caption, for example. But anyways, that's in the PDF 2.0 and the PDF UA2 context. So we're not quite there yet from a software implementation standpoint, although I love this question because maybe that will help developers to lean into PDF 2.0 more
Well,
quickly.
and more are, LaTeX, of course, recently now is able to produce MathML in this is not on the subject of lists, but LaTeX is now producing PDF 2.0 files and PDF UA2. Excellent. Okay, next question here. What's the best practice to include a form field link or hmm, I guess a link in its OBJR inside of a list? William.
Okay, yeah. So this was a little bit confusing because form field link seems to be kind of combining a couple of different terms. So let me
Maybe a
just,
button with a link on, or there's a link action on it.
yeah,
Could the questioner clarify a little bit? But go ahead, William.
well, basically, you're going to put the widget and the OBJR of the widget inside of a form tag, and then that's going to connect the structure tree to the widget. And then, if you're really familiar with PDF forms, you'll be aware that a widget and a form field are separate things, even though they can actually be described in the same PDF dictionary. And the form field is then connected to the tag tree, not directly at all, but through the widget. And so if you're talking about form fields, that's essentially the link that connects the form field to the tag tree. Is you're putting the OBJR for the widget in a form tag. The form tag would go in an L body in that case. Now, if you're
Okay.
talking about um, an actual link, that where and I'm not I'm going to come back to the question, or to the idea that Duff proposed of a button with essentially a go-to action. But if you actually have a true link in the content that's linking either to another place in the document or to an external website, then you're going to use a link tag that will also have an OBJR, and that can, of course, go inside the L body. And the OBJR for the link tag will connect to a link annotation that actually has the action which performs the hypertext link. Now, if you wanted to use like a form button and then set up an action for that, where it's going to act like a link, you're going to need to be very careful, because really, I don't think that if you put the semantics of linking on something that's a form,
Yeah, it's
that it would
ugly.
have proper semantics from an accessibility perspective. It essentially might make it so that your link is now not actually accessible at all.
Well, that will be an interesting technique when we get to that part of the work. I'll be looking forward to that discussion.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you can add actions to widgets, and I suppose you could add a go-to action, which is actually performing the hypertext link operation for the user. But I don't think that would be exposed as a link by user agents. So that sounds like it would be inaccessible to me. We'd have
Yep,
to do some
yep,
testing with that.
yep. We'll definitely have to look at that. So I think we don't have any further questions at this point. And so I would like to thank our panelists for their time and coming on to talk about lists. And I will just take a few seconds here to say thank you for attending, but also please do check out the PDF Association's website. In particular, go visit the lists, techniques, and the other techniques published, and add your own comments in the GitHub repository. Tell us what it is, what those techniques that we should have added that we didn't, and in general, give us a feedback and help us continue to develop these techniques and roll out a comprehensive set, which is absolutely the objective of the liaison working group. Okay, thank you very much again to our panelists. Thanks again to our attendees for joining us. You will, as Jacobin said, you will get an email from the system with a recording of this webinar. And that's it from us at the PDF Association tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.